Welcome to the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season and beyond, filming 2 days a week. For those who are new, welcome. For those who have been here for a while, appreciate the support as always. Today, we've got a special bracketology episode. We're going to break down the entire field of 68 that I have put together in terms of resume, the metrics, a little bit of just about everything that the selection committee will use. We're going to talk about the bubble watch, some in-depth. Some teams are making some strides, moving towards the bubble, even moving off the bubble in a good way. Some other teams moving off the bubble in a not so good way. And then we are going to dive in a little bit about some of the mid-major teams to know that could be your St. Peter's, your Cinderella teams. So the layout of the show today. We filmed on Monday for a Tuesday episode, filmed Monday night to release on Tuesday, and then we had some important results on Tuesday and Wednesday that we're going to talk about that led to this newest bracketology. Quickly, we'll go through those, maybe take 2 or 3 minutes. And then the meat of the show, most of the show, is going to be the entire seed list along with the bubble watch. We're going to break down every single team, and then we will get in quickly to a weekend preview. We have 2 just absolutely spectacular games on Saturday that we'll dive into a little bit. Of course, the betting lines are out in terms of KenPom, which influences influences Vegas in general. So we'll talk about those just briefly, but we're going to talk bracketology today. We're going to be ad-free, so be sure, especially if you're new here, click that like and subscribe button below. Turn on the post notifications so you can stay up to date in the college basketball world. And follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Go check that out. Some good stuff posted on there. Let's dive into the results real quick. Go through these, some of the notable results that led to some of these rankings. Just Tuesday and Wednesday, we had some pretty good days. UCF loses at number 2, Iowa State. No surprise there. Vanderbilt loses at number 4, Alabama. No surprise there. Mississippi State loses at Tennessee. No surprise there. What was surprising and was maybe the biggest result in terms of a team moving a ton, Ohio State wins at number 11, Purdue. Ohio State, they were 8th or 9th team out. They have climbed a ton. We'll talk about them. We won't give that away yet when we get into the bracketology. They are up there. Huge win. 26 straight wins for Purdue at Mackey was broken by this Ohio State win. Jake Diebler beating Purdue twice in a row. How about that? Good for Jake Diebler. Number 18, Wisconsin lost at UCLA. That's an important one. 2 teams in the field right now. UConn survived Butler, and the story behind that one was the whole Dan Hurley experiment with, talking to the refs. Don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in college basketball, he says. It was pretty entertaining, but UConn hangs on, beats Butler. Texas beats Missouri. Good for the SEC in this one. Texas was fading a little bit. Good win here. Arizona State goes to West Virginia and beats them. Kind of surprising in that one. West Virginia solidly in the tournament. Arizona State not. This is good for the Big 12. Louisville just dominates SMU. Louisville off to an 8-1 start in the ACC this year. What a start. UNC, North Carolina, loses at Wake Forest by 67-66. Both teams right on the bubble. Texas Tech goes to Cincinnati and beats them 81-71, and then Creighton beats DePaul. No surprise there. A few other surprising results on Wednesday. Florida leads by a total of a couple seconds over South Carolina, and they end up winning the game still 72-69 thanks to a Will Richard last-second layup, which gave them their first lead of the game and eventually the win. Kansas beats TCU, no surprise there. Number 13, Texas A&M wins at number 16, Ole Miss. They get Wade Taylor back, and he shows how important he is. They get a big win there. Xavier had a perfect opportunity to go to St. John's and beat them. Xavier was up big in the second half and then just could not score the basketball. St. John's gets it to overtime, and then there was no chance Xavier was going to win that game in overtime. St. John's picks up the win. Xavier with a perfect opportunity, just let it slip here. Indiana loses to Northwestern, gets out-coached in the second half. Who would have thought? Georgia loses to Arkansas. Yes, Arkansas picks up their first SEC win of the season, even without Boogie Flan. Boogie Flan, their lottery pick point guard, out for the season with a hand injury. Arkansas, doesn't matter, still gets a win. Utah State dominates Nevada at Utah State, 90-69. Another very important game that flew under the radar in terms of a big result. USC wins at Nebraska. Nebraska is falling off like crazy right now. Nebraska was up to like 7 or 8 seed range. They're outside of the tournament looking in right now. Baylor wins against Kansas State. No surprise there, but Baylor was without Jeremy Roach and Langston Love. Kansas State stinks. Good win for Baylor. Florida State loses at California. I know this doesn't seem like it's such a big result, but Florida State was on the bubble. I had them as like the 8th or 9th team out. You can't lose to California. They drop. San Diego State escapes a nightmare loss at Air Force, which would have been a quad 4 loss. They win in overtime 77-76, and then Boise State's abysmal season continues with a loss at Colorado State. That is it. Got through them quickly. Let's get into the bracketology. Those are some of the results that will influence this bracketology. Now, bear in mind, I'm recording this on Thursday. Right now, Maryland is playing at Illinois, so some things might be fluctuating. I'm guessing Illinois is going to win if I had to guess, but hey, you never know. So Maryland and Illinois, find them on the graphic that is pulled up on YouTube, and just know that could change a little bit. St. Mary's is also playing today. They're hosting San Francisco. San Francisco's good. I expect St. Mary's to win. These wins wouldn't really move anything too much if St. Mary's wins, and if Illinois wins. There's also Memphis is playing tonight, so keep in mind, I expect all those teams to win, but we'll see. You never know. It's college basketball. All right, let's dive into it. The 1 seeds from our last bracketology have not changed to this week. Number 1 overall seed is Auburn. They're 17-1. They have 10 quad 1 wins. That is absolutely ridiculous. Wins above bubble first, strength of schedule first, and they're 17-1. They are without a doubt, as of now, your number 1 overall seed. Number 2 overall seed, which you'll find just about everywhere, is Duke. Duke's metrics are phenomenal. They are now number 1 over at KenPom. It's close between Duke and Auburn, but Duke has overtaken the lead. Duke has the 4th best offense in the country and the 2nd best defense in the country, according to KenPom. They are 16-2. They have losses to Kentucky and Kansas. Nothing too horrible there, and they do have that win at home over Auburn. If I had to pick who will end up being the number 1 overall seed when it comes to March Madness, I would bet on Duke, just because Auburn has a lot more opportunities to lose than Duke does going forward. Duke might go undefeated in the ACC. The ACC is horrible. Auburn, if they end up with 1 loss through this SEC schedule, that would be one of the best teams I've ever seen. So I would bet it will be Duke. What I will say, for those who remember the Baylor National Championship run a couple years ago where Baylor beat Gonzaga, I feel like we're kind of in the same boat as this. It's Auburn and it's Duke as your clear 2 best teams in the country. For those who don't remember that Baylor-Gonzaga, it was during COVID, so that might be why. But Gonzaga was dominant all year, and they've been in the WCC, so they didn't have any real opportunities to lose. They were the number 1 overall seed. Baylor was the number 2 overall seed. And the second 1 seed, they ended up matching up against each other in the championship. What's funny about that is Gonzaga and Baylor were supposed to play a neutral site game earlier in the year, and it got canceled because of COVID. Auburn and Duke played each other, so I'm guessing we're going to see something like that where Duke's, I'm just doing quick math, 30-2 or something, or 29-3, and Auburn is like, 28-4 or something. They're your top 2 overall seeds, already played each other. Auburn playing in the best conference in the country. At that time, the Big 12 was the best conference in the country where Baylor won it. It just kind of seems like things are kind of adding up towards that. And it's crazy to say because the ACC this year is kind of like the WCC was that year. It's just not too fantastic. Anyways, moving on, your third number 1 seed, as I have the automatic qualifier. Now, some of these are not. If you're looking at the graphic, you see I have Iowa State winning the Big 12 because it's not the Big 12 regular season champion. We're looking for the Big 12 tournament champion. So this is kind of just a prediction of my own of who's going to win the Big 12. I still think it's Iowa State's to lose as of right now. They're your third overall number 1 seed if they win the Big 12. 100% a 1 seed. Same goes for, if Houston or Kansas ends up winning probably the Big 12 regular season, you're probably looking at a 1 seed. But Iowa State 5-2 in quad 1, no losses outside of the first quadrant. They're 5th overall at the net. They are up to 4th at KenPom, without a doubt a 1 seed right now. And your 4th number 1 seed would be Alabama. In terms of a resume and quadrant wins, according to the net, Alabama has the 2nd best resume behind Auburn, but the computer metrics don't like them as much. They have 11 wins inside the first 2 quadrants, 5-3 in quadrant 1, 6-0 in quadrant 2. This is equivalent to Auburn, who also has 11, but 10 of theirs come in quadrant one. Duke only has 6 in the first 2 quadrants. Iowa State has 8. So Alabama is up there. They look really good. They're without a doubt your 4th number 1 seed. That Auburn-Alabama game, my goodness, is that going to feed families this year? Can't wait for that. Sticking with some SEC teams, of course. 5 of our top 8 seeds overall out of the SEC. That's how good the conference has been. 5th, Tennessee. Tennessee I do have above Florida, as we will kind of compare their resumes here. I know Florida beat them by 30, but Tennessee is 4th in the net as of now. They're 6-2 in quadrant 1. That is fantastic. 0 losses outside of the first 2 quadrants. They're overall 17-2. 4th in the net, as mentioned, 6th at KenPom. Now, Florida is 5th at KenPom, but Florida is 6th in the net. And compared to Tennessee's 6-2 quadrant 1 record, Florida is 4-2. Now, Florida does have 4 quadrant 2 losses compared to Tennessee's only 1. So Tennessee's 7-2 in the first 2 quadrants. Florida's 8-2. But so it's a very similar resume when you look at a higher net with Tennessee over Florida. But Tennessee is 5th in non-conference wins above bubble, which is a new team sheet metric. Florida is 9th in total wins above bubble, including conference play. Tennessee is 3rd. Florida is 8th. That's why I give a little bit of the edge to Tennessee right now. So we talked about Tennessee and Florida. Next, let's talk about Marquette, who I have as the automatic qualifier out of the Big East. Now, Marquette is down at 17th in the net as of right now. They're a little bit higher thought of at KenPom. They're 13th. So that would be equivalent to not a 2 seed, but when you look at their quadrant wins and their wins above bubble, it's very good. They're 5-2 in quad 1. They're 4-1 in quadrant 2 with that quad 2 loss being at home to Xavier, which they just suffered. Still 9-3 in the first 2 quadrants, 9 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. That's really good. They're 7th in non-conference win above bubble, and they're 10th in including the conference and wins above bubble. So that's putting you on a fringe 2-3 seed, but with in this situation winning the Big East and with all those quad 1 and quad 2 wins, have them as a 2 seed. Now the last 2 seed is a little bit controversial. I think it's Kentucky, and I've seen a lot of other bracketologists with Kansas, and I quite frankly don't know why. Kansas is a little higher at the net, so we do have Kansas as our 3rd 3 seed, or our 2nd 3 seed, excuse me. So let's just talk about those two a little bit in comparison. Both teams in the blue blood category. Kansas at 9th in the net, Kentucky at 11th in the net. Comparing the 2 resumes in quad 1, Kentucky is 6-4. 6 quad 1 wins is fantastic. 4 losses, all in the quad 1, not bad. Kansas is 3-3 in quad 1, 4-1 in quad 2. So you're looking at 7-4 in the first 2 quadrants for Kansas. You're looking at 6-4 because Kentucky is 0-0 in quad 2. But those quad 1 wins definitely carry a lot more weight. 3 more wins in quad 1 for Kentucky over Kansas. Kentucky's 11th in non-conference win above bubble. Kansas is 12th. Kansas is 13th overall in wins above bubble, including conference play. Kentucky is 9th. I lean Kentucky, I think, with all those quad 1 wins, especially when Kentucky has worse losses than Kansas, but Kentucky, I think, has better wins. Kansas has some good wins as well, but Kansas lost at Missouri, Kansas lost at West Virginia, so the losses aren't like completely, worse for Kentucky, I guess. But Kentucky is 19th at KenPom. Kansas is 7th, so I guess that's where some people might be leaning Kansas. In terms of resume metrics and quadrant wins, I lean Kentucky, but it's close. It is close. Another team that is incredibly hard to rank is Oregon. I have Oregon as the first 3 seed. Apologies for kind of going out of order there. We wanted to compare Kansas and Kentucky. Oregon's down at 22 in the net. They have 8 quad 1 wins. Now, not all quad 1 wins are created equally. With that said, they beat Alabama on a neutral. That's a fantastic win. I think they just don't pass the eye test as well as some of the other teams, even the Kentuckys, the Kansas. But in Kansas really doesn't pass the eye test that well. But Oregon even a little less. 22 in the net. They have 8 quad 1 wins. 8-2, 1-1 in quadrant 2. They're third in non-conference wins above bubble, fourth in total wins above bubble, including conference play. That's fantastic. That's like fringe 1/2 seed, but 22nd in net. The computer metrics don't like them that much. Let's see what they're 25th at KenPom right now. The resume is fantastic. Quadrant wins, fantastic. Everything else, computer metrics, eye test, not as great. So they are one of the hardest teams to rank. It's Kentucky, Oregon, Kansas in my mind. The next 3 seed is Purdue, and I thought Purdue would drop a little bit further after that loss to Ohio State, but Ohio State, that win was so good for them that they moved up to 30 in the net, which means that is a quad 1 loss for Purdue in that scenario. So Purdue, they are kind of flying under the radar as of now. They're up to 13th in the net right now, 4-5 in quad 1. Those are the best games there is. So, 4 quad 1 wins. I know it's under 500, but they're 5-0 in quad 2. That's 9 quad 1 plus quad 2 wins. They're 17th in wins above bubble, 11th in wins above bubble total, including the conference play. So they got a nice little resume going right now. I think them and Michigan State kind of just solidified right now on that 3 seed range. Michigan State is the next team we'll talk about, also in the Big Ten. I have them as the automatic qualifier right now. I don't know if it's going to happen. The Big Ten to me is still kind of up for grabs, but they're 4-2 in quad 1, 4-0 in quad 2. Non-conference wins above bubble 39th. Isn't great but in conference play, include conference play, they're 12th. So Michigan State, really no elite wins. They beat Illinois at home, which, I think is a very good win, but no, you went to Purdue and beat them, which you beat, someone fantastic on a neutral site. They beat North Carolina on a neutral site, in Maui, which seemed great at the time, didn't end up being so great. Their other big event was in the Champions Classic against Kansas, where they also lost. So some people saying Michigan State should be a 2. I don't see it. Quite frankly, I thought their best performance was at home against Nebraska, where they beat them by 37, and it was just domination. But Nebraska has really fallen off. They also won at Ohio State and at Northwestern. They beat Penn State and Illinois. They're just getting the job done. I want to see them go to, even at UCLA. They got a game coming up against at UCLA, or at Illinois. They go at Michigan, at Maryland. They only host Purdue, so hold on that one. But I just want to see, how good this team can be against real elite competition. Because a lot of people think that I'm not saying myself, but when Michigan State hosted Illinois the other day and beat them by 2, Yakachonis fouled out. The reffing has just been abysmal in general, so I'm sure it was both sides, but I didn't watch it too in-depthly. So, I still just want to see this team become elite. The first 4 seed, I have Texas A&M. Texas A&M after that huge win at Ole Miss. They're 14th in the net, 6-3 in quad 1, 4-1 in quad 2. 4 seed, they are close to that 3 seed range. Them and Michigan State and Purdue, it's getting a little dicey in there. They're 14th in the net, as mentioned, 10 quad 1 plus quad 2 wins. 8th in wins above bubble in the non-con, 7th in conference, including the conference in wins above bubble. They look pretty good. They're 15th at KenPom, which aligns with about a 4 seed. They're fringe 3-4 seed with Wade Taylor back. They might continue to climb. This team is very, very good. So we said Oregon might have been the hardest team to rank. That might be a lie. Let's talk about Houston. And I know Houston is just kind of going through the social media world is this team fantastic, or are they just good? Or we know they're at least good, but they're 3rd in the net. They just beat Utah 70-36. They held them to 36 points. Utah averages 80 points a game. They held them to 36 points. When this team is on, this team is really good, but just kind of like Michigan State, don't have that elite win. In fact, they don't have a quad 1 win right now. Now, this is strange because just the other day they had 2 quad 1 wins, but with that West Virginia, they beat West Virginia at home, and then West Virginia lost the other day and dropped to sub 30 in the net. And there was another one in there somewhere where that also dropped and didn't end up being a quad 1 win. But 0-3 in quad 1, 6-0 in quad 2, 5-0 in quad 3, 4-0 in quad 4. They get the job done. They're 3rd in the net. They are up to 3rd at KenPom as well. They're 1st at Bart Torvik. So how do you rank this team? No quad 1 wins. Someone, I apologize, I can't remember who it was, but someone on Twitter I saw posted that Houston had a similar situation a couple years ago and ended up being a 5 seed in that one year where the metrics really loved them, didn't have any real great wins. So 4 seed seems about realistic, especially when they're this high in the net. I got them as that second 4 seed. I think without a doubt they're really good, and they're going to pick up some quad one wins in Big 12 play, obviously. The next 4 seed, I do have Ole Miss. I have Ole Miss ahead of Mississippi State, which I think some people might see as it shouldn't be, but I think it's kind of apparent. They're 5-4 in quad one with that quad 1A plus win at Alabama, about as good of a win as anyone has in the country. 5-4 in quad one. Let's compare them to Mississippi State, as I have as the second 5 seed, so just a couple spots back. Mississippi State's 4-3, 3-1 in quadrant two. Ole Miss has not dropped a quad two game yet. Ole Miss has one more quad one win. Wins above bubble favors Mississippi State a little bit. They're 10th they're 14th, including conference play, compared to Ole Miss's 16th. So you're splitting hairs just a little bit there. In terms of KenPom, Ole Miss is a little bit higher as well. They're 18th at KenPom. Mississippi State is 22nd. So I lean Ole Miss just a little bit in this scenario. I know Ole Miss lost at Mississippi State, but head-to-head does not matter, especially when it's on an away environment. So got Ole Miss as that 4 seed. The last 4 seed, I do have Illinois. Illinois, kind of a strange resume as well. They're up at 8th in the net, which seems very high to me. I think they're good, but 8th, that seems a little too high. 4-4 in quad one, very solid. 3-1 in quadrant two. 21st in wins above bubble, including conference play. 8th at the net. This screams just 4 seed. Fringe 4 or 5 seed, but when we talk about the 5 seeds, it's definitely Illinois over them. Compare Illinois to Mississippi State, so we just talked about. Illinois is better. The first 5 seed, I do have Memphis. Memphis out of the AAC, so this is the first mid-major team we're going to talk about. Their resume speaks for itself. 5-2 in quad one, 5-1 in quad two, really good. 10-3 in the first two quadrants. Now they're 1-1 in quad three. Without that home loss to Arkansas State, they'd probably be looking at about a 3 or 4 seed. They got the fifth best wins above bubble in the country, including their conference play. So, but they're 42nd at the net. So, average all those out, I think it screams 5 seed right now. We talked about Mississippi State as our next 5 seed, compared theirs to Ole Miss. Mississippi State, what I will say about them, they have lost quite a few games in a row. Let me pull this up. They have lost 3 of 4, with that one win being against Ole Miss, which was in overtime, and Ole Miss really fought back and looked like they had a great chance of winning that game. Mississippi State got off to a great start, but fading a little bit. Just dropped down from, I think I had them as a 3 seed at one point, down to a 5 seed right now. Next up, the next 5 seed, the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin, 4-4 in quad one. Wisconsin flying under the radar. They're 4-0 in quad two. That is really good. Their wins above bubble aren't as good as Mississippi State, which is what's holding them behind, because they have very similar records. Mississippi State is 7-4 in quad one and two. Wisconsin is 8-4, yet Wisconsin's behind them in the net. They're actually one above them at KenPom. So these two teams are pretty much a coin flip, but they're a little bit behind them in wins above bubble, 17th compared to Mississippi State's 14th. It's a coin flip. I give the benefit to Mississippi State as of now, but Wisconsin, flying under the radar, they have some serious Final Four potential this year. They're really good. And as the final 5 seed, who would have thought? 23rd in the net, the Louisville Cardinals. How about the job that Pat Kelsey has done? Absolutely rolling right now. They're 8-5 in the first two quadrants, 4-5 in quad one, 4-0 in quad two, 15th in wins above bubble, including conference play. They were 53rd in the non-con in wins above bubble. So it's kind of what's holding them down a little bit. No real, they're beating teams that are like 50-50 games, which is kind of what's carrying their resume right now. They won at Pitt. That's really good. They won at home against Clemson. They just won at SMU by 25. They beat North Carolina at home. So they're looking pretty good. They lost at Kentucky. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Oklahoma. And they lost to Tennessee badly early in the year, but no bad losses. Louisville, Pat Kelsey, back in the tournament as a 5 seed. How about that? I would have missed that bet. If they just made the tournament, I'd have said, yeah, I can see them getting as high as an 8 or 9 seed. They're pretty good. They're looking good. Next up, the first 6 seed, Michigan. Also a interesting resume. They're 12th at the net. The computers love them because their offense is so just eye test beautiful, it seems. They're 3-1 in quad 1, pretty solid. 3-3 in quad 2, 6-0 in quad 3, 2-0 in quad 4. One of their quad 3 losses moved up to a quad 2 loss, which was Wake Forest. So Wake Forest keeps winning. It looks better for Michigan. So they're 6-4 in the first 2 quadrants with being 12th in the net. Pretty solid, but 3 quad 2 losses. That's more than anyone you'll find that we have talked about so far. So Michigan and Dusty May, they look good. They've been playing well in Big Ten. They were 76th in wins above bubble in the non-con. They got that up to 28th, including conference play. So right about a 6 seed right now, looking good. The next mid-major that we will talk about out of the Mountain West, the team I have projected to win the Mountain West, Utah State, after their dominating performance last night over Nevada. Utah State with one of the more impressive resumes in the country, 3-0 in quad 1, no quad 1 losses. They do have 2 quad 2 losses, 5-2 though, 8-2 in the first 2 quadrants, really good. 21st in wins above bubble in the non-con, 19th now with the conference play. But the thing that's kind of holding them back right now is their overall metrics. They're 43rd at KenPom. They're 36th in the net. So that's kind of what's holding them down. Seeding is heavily reliant on these metrics. When you're talking about getting into the tournament, it's who have you beaten? What have you done to deserve to get in the tournament? But then we use a little bit of predictives when it comes to seeding teams. So you could argue Michigan should be a little bit higher, but 3 quad 2 losses, So that's kind of what makes the bracketology thing just so challenging and so fun to do. But Utah State, 36th in the net, but a great resume. Utah State solidly in the tournament. Next up, West Virginia. West Virginia, after that tough loss, that was a tough loss. They were fringe 4 or 5 seed range. Now they're down to a 6 seed with a home loss to Arizona State. That's not something you want to do. They're 4-4 in quad 1, really good. 1-1 in quad 2, so only 5 quad 1 plus quad 2 wins. Not horrible. They're 5-5, nothing wrong with that. 22nd in wins above bubble in the non-con. Pretty solid, solidified as about a 6 seed right now. Next up, St. John's. Now, St. John's in that category of like the Houstons and the Michigans, where the computers really love them, but they haven't done too spectacularly much. But they're up to 20th at KenPom. They're 25th in the net, so pretty solid. Fringe 6-7 seed. They're 1-3 in quad 1 though. They are lucky they did not lose that game to Xavier. 1-3 in quad 1. No losses outside of quadrant 1 though. They're 24th in wins above bubble, including conference play. So pretty solid. I would say 6-7. If they'd have lost that Xavier game, you're probably falling to about an 8 seed. But no losses outside of quadrant 1. Haven't done anything wrong. But I would love to see them. I want to see them compete with Marquette. I want to see them compete with UConn. I want to see them go win at who's a sneaky good team in the Big East. The Big East at Creighton. Go win at Creighton. I think Creighton already played them and beat them though, so they're not going to get that. But you get the point. Want to see them really perform against some top level competition. Moving on, 7 seeds, Missouri as your first 7 seed. Missouri coming off a winless season in the SEC last year. They're looking good. 2-4 in quad 1, nothing spectacular, nothing bad though. 0 losses outside of quadrant 1 though. The metrics don't like them as much as St. John's, which is why I gave St. John's the benefit over Missouri in that last one. Their wins above bubble are nearly equivalent. Missouri is 23rd, St. John's is 24th, but Missouri is not as loved at KenPom as St. John's. St. John's is 20th, Missouri's 30th. That ended up being the difference for me. Now it's 25th and 26th at the net. St. John's 25th, Missouri 26th. So you're splitting hairs here, but both teams 5 and St. John's is 5-3 in the first 2 quadrants. Missouri's 5-4. but Missouri has one more quadrant one win. They're really close. I gave the benefit to St. John's just for the computer metrics. Moving on, the next 7 seed, you'll notice we haven't mentioned UConn yet. Yes, UConn resume is lacking a little bit here. We talked about Michigan's quad 2 losses, excuse me. UConn has the same thing. They're 4-3 in quad 2. Now they're 3-2 in quad 1, which is pretty good. So 7-5. That's a lot of quad 1 and quad 2 games. Tough schedule. Nice for Dan Hurley there. Wins above bubble, non-conference, 46th, 38th in conference play. Not too spectacular. And they are down to 34th in the net. Wow. Who would have ever thought that? They're 34th in the net and 35th at KenPom. The computers do not like this team. They're still a 7 seed because they've racked up a lot of wins, but a little bit lower than you might expect. The next 7 seed, another tough team to rank, I will say, out of the Big 12, Texas Tech. Texas Tech is loved, and I mean loved by the metrics, maybe more metric to quadrant win betterness, I guess, whatever word I'm looking for here. Texas Tech, they're 10th in the net, 3-2 in quad 1, 2-1 in quad 2, 3-1 in quad 3. So nothing too awesome. They're 11th at KenPom. The computers love them. I came into the season thinking this team was really, really good. I still think they are, but I want to see them, they're getting on to a right start in Big 12 play. That win against Arizona is going to continue to age even better, I think. They were 71st in non-conference wins above bubble. Big 12 play has carried them. They're up to 32nd in total wins above bubble, so that's pretty good. Fringe about 7 seed right there, which is exactly where I have them. That quad 3 loss hurting, but 5-3 in the first 2 quadrants, but just that quad 3 loss. You don't want to lose these quad 3 games, but sometimes you just got to deal with it and hope the computers love you just like Texas Tech does. They're efficient. They're a good team. They're going to be a team to watch out for come March. Speaking of Arizona, let's talk about them. They're highly ranked at the net as well. They're 15th. This team was kind of just written off when they started off 4-5. They're 3-6 in quad 1 with 0 losses outside of quadrant 1. So that's a pretty good resume. That's nothing too horrible. They were 94th in the non-conference wins above bubble. Not very good. 33rd. Now, with Big 12 play, they got off to a great start. Their lone loss coming at Texas Tech. I'm in on Arizona. I think they're pretty good as long as Caleb Love can stay under control. They're about a 7 seed right now. They look like a team that a 2 seed would not want to face. You're Kentucky, and you're no offense, Kentucky fans, but you're not expected to end up being a 2 seed at the beginning of this year. No, I wouldn't have said you were going to be a 2 seed. I'd been like, yeah, if you get up to a 4 seed, that's a fantastic year. They've been fantastic and up to a 2 seed. And then you win a game, you beat St. Peter's, hopefully, that Calipari couldn't do. Then you get to draw Arizona, Texas Tech, or UConn. That doesn't sound too fun. That's not something I would want to do. So hopefully it's not Kentucky. Hopefully it's not Marquette. Hopefully it's not Florida. Hopefully it's not Tennessee. All these 2 seeds that have to face any of these teams. But someone's going to have to draw them, and that would not be too fun. The first 8 seed, I have Clemson. Clemson, another tricky resume. They're 7-4 in the first 2 quadrants, 3-2 in quad 1, 4-2 in quad 2. So 2 quad 2 losses, 51st in wins above bubble in the non-con. After the non-con, I had them as a real legit bubble team, but they've done well in the ACC as you have to do. You can't lose games in the ACC as poor as it is. We mentioned they lost to Louisville, but Louisville, that win is continuing to age beautifully. They're now 26th in wins above bubble. Clemson as an 8 feels low. I think I just have nowhere. They have nowhere to go. I compared their resume to Arizona, to Texas Tech, to UConn, to Missouri. It's not as good as them, but they kind of scream 7 seed to me as of now. But they're still right in the conversation. Look good. Brad Brownell done a fantastic job the last 2 seasons. The next 8 seed, Georgia. Georgia 2-5 in quad 1, 0 losses outside of the first quadrant. It's looking good, 27th in wins above bubble. They're off to a shaky start in SEC play. They're 2-4. But my goodness, have they played an absolute gauntlet. And I mean gauntlet to start SEC play. And guess what? It's not going to get easier. Listen to their SEC schedule. They start off at Ole Miss, who's been one of the best teams in not only the SEC, but in the country. Lose that one. Then you get to host Kentucky. That's never fun, but they won 82-69. So good. You get to host Oklahoma. Fine. And then it starts at Tennessee. Yikes. You're not going to win that one. No one's going to win that one. You get to host Auburn. That's not fun. Auburn's been the best team in the country. Then you get to go to Arkansas, who's been struggling. Still a top 20 team in the preseason. That's not fun. And now you get to go to Florida on Saturday. That's not fun. Then you get a break. You get to host South Carolina, and then you go to Alabama. That's the SEC. Welcome to the SEC. That's tough. So if Georgia kind of falls towards 9 seed range, I wouldn't be too worried. But if they pick up a big win, that's going to carry a ton, and I mean a ton of weight. But good job there by Mike White. They're up to an 8 seed. Next 8 seed is Baylor. Baylor, 2-5 in quad 1, not great. They do have a quadrant 3 loss, which is tough. It's that home loss to TCU. They're still 30th in wins above bubble in the non-con and 35th, including conference play. They're 4-3 in the Big 12. I think if they go above 500 in the Big 12, they'll get in. They're starting to cut it a little bit close there. Thank God they didn't lose to Kansas State, or we'd have been having a little bit of a different conversation. But Baylor, 28th in the net, still computers like them, not top 25, but computers like them, so they're still in the tournament as of now. Moving on to UCLA is our final 8 seed. UCLA 4-4 in quad 1 seems pretty solid for an 8 seed, right? They're 1-2 in quadrant 2, which is kind of killing them. They suffered some tough losses, but 37th in wins above bubble, including conference play. 35th at the net. Yeah, they're about an 8 seed, 8-9 seed fringe. 9 seeds, a team that has done great for themselves as of late. Creighton 3-4 in quad 1, pretty solid. 4-2 in quadrant 2, yeah, okay. 7-6 in the first 2 quadrants, nothing too spectacular. 65th in non-conference wins above bubble. They had a rough non-con, but they've been playing good in Big East play. 6-2, that win at UConn, man, what a savior to a season that could be for Creighton. Now up to 30th in wins above bubble, including conference play, so they're solidified in the tournament right now as a 9 seed. The next 9 seed, Vanderbilt. Yes, how about Vanderbilt and the job Mark Byington has done? 2-3 in quad 1, 2-1 in quad 2. Nothing too awesome. 4-4. They're liked by the computers up at 38th. They're 3-3 in the SEC. Hey, you go 500 in the SEC, Vanderbilt's going to be in the tournament. I can promise you that. They're 40th in non-con win above bubble, 31st in wins above bubble, and including conference play. So good in the wins above bubble rank. Only 4 quad 1 plus quad 2 wins. 3-3 in quad 1. Yeah, they're in. They're in. Not by a ton, but they're in. I got them as a 9 seed right now. The next 9 seed, a team that better hang on for dear life. Gonzaga. I had Gonzaga ranked after they beat Baylor early in the year. Now I know that's the first day. I had them as the number 1 team in the country. They have fallen off crazy since then. 14-6 overall, 5-2 in the WCC. That's not like Gonzaga. They only have 2 quad 1 wins. 2 quad 1 wins. And yes, that opening night win against Baylor was one of them. So since then, 1-5 in quad 1, 2-1 in quad 2. Weird seeing Gonzaga with quadrant 2 losses, but they're still 19th in the net, which is high. The computers always love Gonzaga because, quite frankly, they blow out a lot of teams because they play in a not so strong conference. They were 35th in non-conference wins above bubble. That has gotten worse since they joined the conference. Since conference play started. They're now 50th in wins above bubble, including conference play. So kind of hanging on by a thread. Hanging on for dear life right now. Still in the tournament, 19th in the net. Still a good team with high upside, but we'll see. Speaking of teams that, like, imagine you're a 1 seed, you're Duke, and you're like, all right, we got the best freshman in a long time, and then Gonzaga beats, they play Baylor in the first round. They beat Baylor, and then you're Duke, and you got to play Gonzaga in the second round. Well, that would absolutely suck. Absolutely suck. The last 9 seeds, sticking in the WCC. Yeah, how about that? St. Mary's. St. Mary's off to a good start. 27th in the net. 48th in wins above bubble, including conference play. So better than Gonzaga in that category, but they don't have a quad 1 win. They're 0-0 in quad 1. 3-3 in quad 2. Not great. But 0 losses outside of the first 2 quadrants. So they're kind of just right there. 2 very opposite, very, very opposite resumes, Gonzaga and St. Mary's. First 10 seed, Oklahoma. Yeah, I know people aren't going to like this because people think Oklahoma, they've struggled mightily in the SEC. They're 1-4 in the SEC. They came in, they were 9-0 coming in, they were 13-0 coming into SEC play. They're 3-3 in quad 1, 1-1 in quad 2. Yeah, that's really good. So you think, yeah, those metrics or those quadrant wins are really good. Why are they a 10 seed? They're down at 50 in the net right now. Their wins above bubble in the non-con was 6th. Yeah, who would have thought they were up to they've now dropped it down to 25th, and including conference play, but 50th at the net. That's kind of what's what is indeed holding them back right now. They're 41st at KenPom, so the metrics don't like them as well. Remember, they would get in the tournament because they got the job done and got the wins, but the metrics or the computer predictives really do have an impact in terms of seeding. So right there, have them as about a 10 seed right now. The first 10 seed, though, so they're doing just fine. Next up, a team very, and I mean very similar. It took me forever to figure out who to put. I know it's 2 10 seeds, so it's like, yeah, they're both 10 seeds. Who really cares? But I looked at these hard. San Diego State, compared to Oklahoma's resume, is about as similar as it gets. Remember we said Oklahoma 3-3 in quad 1, 1-1 in quad 2? Same for San Diego State. San Diego State's a little bit higher in the net. They're 48th compared to Oklahoma's 50th, but San Diego State does have a quad 3 loss, which is why I ended up going with Oklahoma ahead of them. They're also a little bit worse in wins above bubble stats, but San Diego State, I still have them in the tournament. If they'd have lost that game at Air Force, you're looking at a first 4, maybe first 4 out type of team. They got to start figuring some things out. They're 5-3 in the Mountain West, 11-5 overall. That win over Houston on a neutral is carrying, and I mean carrying them right now. Next up, the next 10 seed, Pitt. Another team that is starting to fade. So as you will start to see, these 10 seeds started off real well, and they're just starting to fall off like crazy. But Pitt 3-4 in the ACC to start the year, 1-5 in quad 1, 3-1 in quad 2. So you're looking at 4-6 in quad 1 plus 2. Not very good. They were 19th in non-conference wins above bubble, which is good. Now dropped to 45th in a weak ACC. They're falling into the trap where it's like you just can't lose in the ACC this year because it's not a good conference. That's what Pitt has been doing. They're still 32nd in the net. They're in the tournament now, but they're a last 4 bye team as of now. Next up, Maryland. As mentioned, these teams have just been starting to fade a little bit, just like Maryland. Maryland, 14-5 on the year, seems good. Only 4-4 in Big Ten play. You go 500 in the Big Ten, there's a good chance that you're going to get in the NCAA tournament. Only 1 quad 1 win, 1-4 in quad 1. They're 3-1 in quad 2, so 4-5, very similar to that Pitt resume. Their wins above bubble, not close to Pitt's, though. They're 46th right now in wins above bubble. What did I say Pitt's was? Excuse me. Let me take a look here. They're 46th and Pitt's was 45th, but the non-conference wins above bubble was where Pitt was 19th and Maryland is 42nd. So the non-con, a little bit better for Pitt, and I don't think the committee would really penalize Pitt because it's still the ACC and their metrics are taking a hit because of the ACC, but it's still a power conference, kind of like what we saw last year with the Mountain West and what they did. They're like, yeah, the Mountain West just eating each other up, so they rank teams lower. I think it's kind of the opposite in this one, but I think Pitt and Maryland, that's kind of a close one. That might have been a mistake there. I think Maryland might be 1 spot ahead of Pitt, so maybe flip those 2. I'll change those for the graphic that we're going to post on. It's rare that I find one that I'm just talking about and I talk myself out of it, but I'll, on the graphic tonight, post it on Instagram. I will be switching Maryland and Pitt. Next up, the last bye team, New Mexico. Now, New Mexico is 55th in the net. Not great. 1-1 in quad 1, 6-1 in quad 2, and 2-2 in quad 3. They have a very, and I mean a very interesting resume. They're 43rd in wins above bubble. 6 quad 1 wins quad 2 wins, is very good. 6-1, that's fantastic. 2 quad 3 losses. They're a hard team to rank. 43rd in wins above bubble. That kept me right about where they should be as the last team in. Now, watching on YouTube, we are going to switch to our bubble watch. We're going to switch to the graphic, then we will come back and talk about some of these mid-majors that you're going to want to know. So let's talk about, we just mentioned the last 4 byes, San Diego State, Pitt, and Maryland. Flip those 2. San Diego State, Maryland, Pitt, New Mexico. Now let's talk about our first 4. Ohio State I have back into the tournament after that huge win at Purdue. As mentioned, that's a quad 1A win. They're 3-6 in quad 1. They have 2 huge. They beat Kentucky by 20. You go and win at Mackey. I think the committee will really like that because they're going to be like, yeah, this is a team that can beat just about anyone in the country, which they can. They can also lose to just about anyone in the country, it seems. They're 1-2 in quad 2. So you're looking at 4-8 in the first 2 quadrants. Nothing spectacular. Their non-conference wins above bubble is good. 27th. That's good. That gets you in the tournament. 49th, including conference play. That puts you on the bubble compared with these metrics. I have them as a first 4 team right now. Next up is Texas. I also have Texas as a first four team. They're 2-5 in quad one, 2-1 in quad two, so 4-6 in the first two quadrants, 58th in non-conference wins above bubble, and 40th including conference play. 33rd at the net. Ohio State was 30th, so these two teams are in terms of the net. Ken Pom really likes Ohio State. Ken Pom, they're 29th. Texas is 39th at Ken Pom, so very bubbly. Two teams with not a lot of room to operate. Now the next one is going to be an unpopular one. I still have North Carolina in the tournament as of right now. They're 1-7 in quad one. That's not good. 4-1 in quad two, and 0 losses outside of the first two quadrants. 1-7 doesn't look good, but that means that there's no real bad losses, which is true about this team. They're 4th in strength of schedule, so that's really carrying them. They're 39th in the net, 36th in wins above bubble. That's a team that's probably in the tournament. I know they're not really passing the eye test right now. Still 33rd at Ken Pom. I fully believe if the tournament were to start today, at worst, they would be a first four team. I think they'd be in the tournament. And the last team in, I have Indiana. I do have Indiana in the tournament as the last team in, 65th at the net. The computers do not like them because they just underperform. But their metrics are, or their resume wins are not that bad. 2-6 in quadrant one, 44th in wins above bubble in the non-con, up to 39th now, believe it or not. They're 5-4 in Big Ten play, so not horrible. The 0 losses outside of the quad one is good. When they show that, I know it seems like they're losing games that they shouldn't lose, but no losses outside of quad one, 65th in the net. That's the only thing that's scary. It is rare teams get in, but it's also rare teams are ranked 65th in the net with 0 losses outside of the first quadrant. So I have Indiana as the last team in. First team out, Arizona State. Arizona State was really not in the conversation for me until they went and won at Cincinnati. I had Arizona like on the bubble, but not near in the tournament. Now I have them as the first team out. 2-6 in quad one, so their resume compared to Indiana's kind of similar. Arizona State's 56th in the net, but compared to Indiana, 65th, so the computers like them a little more. Both teams 2-6 in quad one. Arizona State has a quad three loss, though, which is kind of what's taken me down here. As we mentioned, Indiana is 47th in wins above bubble, including conference play. Indiana is 39th. Sorry, Indiana's 39th. Arizona State 41st. With the quad three loss, I give it to Indiana at the moment in time. Next up, Wake Forest. Now, Wake Forest, I know we mentioned Indiana 65th in the net. I thought after Wake Forest beat North Carolina that they would climb a little more. They're 75th in the net. That's not good enough. That's very low. 1-4 in quad one, only 2 quad two losses, or two quad two wins, excuse me. They're 12-0 in quad 3 and 4, so just kind of playing a weak schedule is what's hurting this team right now. 41st in non-conference wins. Well, they're up to 29th now, but they're 75th in the net. To me, that's a little bit too much. I don't think their resume is as good as Indiana's right now with these rankings. They're 77th at Ken Pom. That's not good. That's not good whatsoever. Usually you need to be sub 50, maybe sub 55 in the net to be in the NCAA tournament, which is weird because I'm making an exception with Indiana with 0 losses outside of the first quadrant. But so does Wake Forest, but they're down at 75th, which is why I give the edge to Indiana in that scenario. The next team out, UCF, kind of in the same boat as Wake Forest, 77th in the net right now. 3-5 in quad one is better than Indiana, than Arizona State, than Wake Forest. They do have a quad two loss and 0 quad two wins. So they're also a little bit worse in wins above bubble, 34th right now. These teams are very close. Indiana, Arizona State, Wake Forest, UCF, about as close as it gets. I gave the edge to Indiana as of right now. Now, a team that did just beat Indiana, Northwestern, I have as the first 4 team out. Northwestern 2-6 in quad 1, 1-1 in quad 2, so 3-7 in the first 2 quadrants. They're up to 54th in non-conference wins above bubble. That's just on the outside looking in, and 47th at the net isn't high enough to carry them into the tournament conversation right now. Next up, Cincinnati, I have as a next 4 team out. 2-5 in the Big 12. What is going on? I don't know what's going on there. North Carolina fans really seem to be leaning in towards the idea that Hubert Davis might not last another year, and they really want to go after Wes Miller. I mean, I know he has ties to the university, and I think Wes Miller is a good coach. But you're North Carolina. Go out and get someone who's, not 2-5 in conference play right now. They're 0-5 in Quad 1, 4-1 in Quad 2. Nothing spectacular. They're 58th in wins above bubble. I have them on the outside looking in. I'm not sure why North Carolina. I know Wes Miller is a good X's and O's coach, but I'm not sure why they're so into. If North Carolina fans listening, let me know why. I know he has ties, but you can pay anyone. Go steal Rick Pitino from St. John's, But moving on, next up, Nebraska. Nebraska kind of playing themselves out of the tournament right now. 57th in the net, 1-5 in Quad 1. Nothing too horrible. They entered the non-con. Remember I said I had them at about a 7 or 8 seed? They finished non-conference play with a 23rd wins above bubble rank. Very good, very good. They've dropped it all the way down to 56. They're 2-6 in the Big Ten. What's going on? 1-5 in Quad 1, 3-1 in Quad 2 with a 2-1 Quad 3 record. It's not good. It's fallen off. They're on the outside looking in. Next up, Penn State. Penn State as the third next four team out. Now, Penn State got off to a pretty solid start this year. They beat Purdue at home. So it looked like they were going to kind of cruise, but they're 1-4 in Quad 1, 1-2 in Quad 2, 59th in wins above bubble, including conference play. 49th at the net. That's a team on the outside looking in. And the last team, a team I think is going to honestly fall off of the bubble, but I still have them in here as the eighth team out. SMU. SMU was loved by the computers for a while. They still kind of are. They're 44th at the net, even though they just got drilled by Louisville at home. They're 51st at KenPom. So that's a bubble-ish team. They're 0-4 in Quad 1, 3-1 in Quad 2, but 0 losses outside the first two quadrants, which is why I still have them on the bubble. They're 53rd, including conference play in wins above bubble. They're 5-3 in the ACC. I think they'll need to finish higher than North Carolina or Pitt in the ACC to get an at-large berth. Alrighty, that was the bubble watch. Let's go back to the actual seedless graphic here. So as you'll see, we mentioned the 11 seeds, New Mexico and Texas playing Ohio State in a first four game. I do have UC Irvine and Drake as the 11 seeds because they have, quite frankly, just as good, if not better, resumes as North Carolina and Indiana. So I have North Carolina playing Indiana in a playing game as a 12 seed. UC Irvine out of the Big West, one of those teams to watch out for. They could be a Florida Atlantic from a couple years ago. They have a ton of skill. They're a great coach. Drake, Ben McCollum, what a job he has done transferring up from the Division II level. Know the name Ben McCollum from Drake. I have them as an 11 seed right now. Them/Bradley. If Bradley, say Drake runs the table and Bradley wins the Missouri Valley, Drake might really have an at-large case depending on how these teams eat up against each other. Now it's going to be harder because most of those games aren't Quad 1 wins. When if Texas loses games, that's going to be Quad 1 losses. So Quad 1 losses don't really hurt you too much. Watch out for Drake. Drake and UC Irvine, two mid-majors to know. So the 12 seeds we mentioned, North Carolina and Indiana. VCU as the first at-large 12 seed out of the A10. Dayton has really fallen off like crazy. I think it's VCU's to lose. They're the heavy favorites in the betting market. VCU, they got some serious upside. They got a guy by the name of Max Shulga to know. VCU off to a great start this year, and a team that has made a living, making a living in March Madness. Next up, McNeese out of the Southland. I don't think this McNeese team is as good as their metrics might say. They're 67th in the net. I don't think they're that good. They're 77th in wins above bubble, which isn't bad for a mid-major team, especially out of the Southland. No Quad 1 wins. They got a Quad 3 loss. They played kind of a tough non-conference because they were supposed to be a powerhouse, and they still are a powerhouse in the mid-major realm. But I don't think this is going to be a team that I know they'll be a heavy pick to win a game in March. I don't think they're going to do it. I am kind of fading McNeese this year. Next up, Yale as the 12 seed. A team I will never fade is Yale. They are always good in March Madness. Now, it could be Yale, could be Princeton, could even be Columbia. Columbia looks good. Brown's not bad. I give it to Yale as of right now. They know how to win. They know how to get the job done. They're 83rd in the net. Never count out Yale in March Madness. 13 seed out of Conference USA. Give me Liberty. Liberty is one of those teams that's just every year they're good, and it's frustrating that they're good every single year for the teams in their conference. They finished the non-con with a 43rd wins above bubble rank. That's good. That's close to at like that. In wins above bubble, that's probably at large berth, but they've kind of fallen off. They're 3-3 in Conference USA. I still think they're the best team in Conference USA. Other teams to know. I mean, what Conference USA is pretty good. UTEP's good this year. New Mexico State's good this year. Got a couple others, Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky, always in it. But I give it to Liberty as of right now. Even though they're not winning the conference, they're still by far the highest ranked team at in the net. Moving on, Lipscomb out of the ASUN. Lipscomb played Arkansas earlier in the year and kind of impressed. They're up to 79th in the net. They got some quad 3 losses, a quad 4 loss. Just a solid team. Lipscomb always just kind of, I think they're the best program in the ASUN. Arkansas State. How about Arkansas State? They beat Memphis at home at Memphis this year. So Arkansas State is a little bit of a team to watch out for. If I say so myself, that's a quad 1 win. Yes, it is. They are 3-2 in the first 2 quadrants. How about that? That's pretty good for Arkansas State. Now, they're not going to be an at-large team, but they're a team to watch out for come March. They're a team, if I was playing the 13 seeds, I sure wouldn't want to face Arkansas State, and I sure wouldn't want to face Grand Canyon, who we're going to talk about next. Now, Grand Canyon, quite frankly, has disappointed this year, which is crazy to say because they're still 93rd in the net for a WAC team. They're 0-1 in quad 1, 1-2 in quad 2, 3-1 in quad 4, in quad 3, and have 1 quad 4 loss. We know the upside with this team. They won a game last year in March. They got a guy by the name of Tyan Grant Foster, who I'm sure everyone has heard of. He is a stud. They've been a little disappointing this year. That would still be tough if you're a 4 seed and you have to face Grand Canyon, a team who has experience winning in March Madness. Next up, the first 14 seed Buckyball. Give me Samford. Samford in the top 100 in the net. They've got a pretty solid resume going. No quad 1 wins. They do have 2 quad 3 losses. They don't have any wins inside the first 2 quadrants, but no quad 4 losses, and they're a solid team. They got a high-powered offense, 5-1 in conference play. They're 69th in wins above bubble. It's pretty solid for a Samford squad. I got them as the first 14 seed. The next 14 seed, High Point. High Point was supposed to be one of the top 3 or 4 best mid-majors in the country. They haven't been, but they are just now getting healthy. So High Point, I think, is going to continue to climb. They are only 5-2 in conference play, but High Point a team to kind of watch out for. Charleston out of the CAA Chris Mack squad. I think Chris Mack's going to get back into the tournament this year. Chris Mack, for those who don't know, he was at Louisville for a while and now in the beautiful Charleston area. Got Charleston winning the CAA. Watch out for Elon. UNC Wilmington's in there, but I give it to Charleston right now. I gave it to, North Dakota State. Sorry. North Dakota State out of the Summit League. It could be South Dakota State. I gave it to North Dakota State. They're a fun team to watch. They really got up there once they played Alabama well at North Dakota State in that random game for Grant Nelson to come home. North Dakota State has a quad 1 win. They also have a quad 2 win. They're 2-1 in the first 2 quadrants. How about that? Now they're still, 14 seed range in terms of stuff, but still pretty good. They could be South Dakota State. It also could be St. Thomas winning that conference, but they are not yet eligible for March Madness. 15 seed out of the MAC. I do have the Akron Zips. Could be Akron, could be Kent State, could be Toledo, could be Ohio. This is a down MAC conference this year. Akron is 11-0 in quad 4. That's kind of fun. They have 0 wins inside the first 3 quadrants, so it's kind of up for grabs. Kent State, I would not fade. Rob Senderoff does a great job there, but same goes for Toledo. But I gave it to Akron as of right now. They're the highest ranked team in the net. It's a coin flip though. Next up, Purdue-Fort Wayne out of the Horizon. Purdue-Fort Wayne. The Horizon League up for grabs. Cleveland State has looked really good in the Horizon as well. I came into the year thinking Milwaukee was the best team. They still might be the best team. As of right now, I gave it to Purdue-Fort Wayne. It's close though. Next up, Northern Colorado. Northern Colorado off to a solid start this year. Don't fade Northern Colorado yet. 4-1 in quad 3, 7-0 in quad 4. They get the job done. 0-4 in the first 2 quadrants, 128th in the net. Not too bad. Northern Colorado having a pretty good year this year. Next up, I have Bryant. Give me the Bryant Bulldogs. Bryant is coming out of the America East. It could be Vermont, could be UMass Lowell. But Bryant, I give them some credit. They just beat UMass Lowell pretty good. So that's ended up putting Bryant into the conversation. First 16 seed. Actually, let's talk about the first two 16 seeds because these are teams that I don't have as a playing game. So the higher ranked teams, Quinnipiac, I think the best program out of that conference. Same goes for Norfolk State. They will have Michael Vick as their football coach, for those who didn't know. They're also a pretty good basketball program. They beat Missouri a couple years ago. Next up, Central Connecticut State taking on Little Rock in a play-in game, and then Southern taking on Colgate out of the Patriot League in the last play-in game. Those teams will have a better chance than Quinnipiac and Norfolk State to win a game because they get to play each other in March Madness if it stands right now. That is the entire seed list. Got through that in just about an hour, so hopefully you stuck with us. We really appreciate it if you did. Before we head out of here, let's just talk about a weekend preview, some games for you guys to watch this upcoming week. I'm going to release this, as mentioned. I'm taping this right now when Illinois is going to take on Maryland, so no Thursday games to watch. Remember, things might fluctuate a little bit in that bracketology. But on Friday, the games to watch, we got a couple. We got a big one in the Big Ten. First off, we got Villanova traveling to number 10 Marquette. The game's at 7 o'clock on FS1. Marquette's favored by 10. The big one is at 8 o'clock on Fox, where number 21 Michigan travels to number 11 Purdue. Purdue coming off that loss to Ohio State at home. They get a chance to redeem themselves against Ohio State's rival, Michigan. Purdue favored by 4 via KenPom in that one. At 9 o'clock on FS1, two bubbly teams. Penn State travels to Iowa. Iowa favored by 2. I got Penn State as the next 4 team out. Iowa probably like the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th team out. Next 4 out, if you may. So both teams really in desperate need of a win. Iowa fallen off lately. Next up at 9 o'clock on ESPNU, if you're into some mid-major ball, St. Bonaventure travels to VCU. Watch out for that VCU team. VCU favored by 10 in that one. Now let's talk about Saturday. Saturday is the day to know. We have 2 incredible matchups that we'll talk about. I got this graphic separated into must-watch games and under-the-radar games. Look at these must-watch game graphics. Look how close these spreads are compared at KenPom. Yeah, we're going to be set up for a fun day. Starting at 1:30 on CBS, number 8 Michigan State travels to Rutgers, a Rutgers team that's been playing a lot better as of late. Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, must-watch TV. Michigan State undefeated in the Big Ten. Check that out, 1:30 on CBS. At 2:30 on ESPN2, a rivalry game. Number 13, Texas A&M travels to Texas. Texas A&M favored by only 1 on the road at Texas, who will get the job done in that interstate rivalry. At 4:30 on ESPN, number 2 Duke travels to Wake Forest. Wake Forest just beat North Carolina. Now they get to host Duke. Duke is favored by 12 via KenPom, though. Remember, we mentioned the metrics do not like Wake Forest. This shows 12-point favorites on the road for Duke. Wake Forest, huge opportunity here. Keep it close. Maybe those metrics build up a little bit better. 6 o'clock on SEC Network, we got a ranked-on-ranked matchup. Number 16, Ole Miss, travels to number 22, Missouri. Both teams coming off of a loss. Missouri favored by 1 in this one. Another real tight spread in that game. 6 o'clock, SEC Network. Now let's get to some wow games. At 6:30 on ESPN, this is the game that the Big 12 wants every year. No disrespect to Iowa State, but these are the 2 programs that you want to see match up every year. Number 7, Houston travels to number 12, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. 6:30 on ESPN, Houston favored by 1 on the road. I don't think that's what the spread will be. It will lean towards Kansas because Houston doesn't have any of the huge wins, but Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse, that's going to get them favored in this game. I don't know who to pick in this game. I think Houston's better, but Houston hasn't proven they can beat the dominant teams, and it's about as tough to do at Allen Fieldhouse as anything else in the country. That is a must-watch game. 6:30 ESPN. 8 o'clock on Fox, another fun one. Number 19 UConn, the back-to-back national champions who have been struggling as of late, travel to Xavier. Xavier had it against St. John's. If they would have they won at Marquette earlier in the week. If they'd have won at St. John's, and then you have a perfect opportunity hosting UConn here, a UConn team that's deflated without Liam McNeely. They could have won those 3. They would have been in the tournament at that point, but they let that one slip away. Still a huge opportunity. Probably 9th team out I would have right now is Xavier. You win this one, you're back in the conversation. At 8:30 on ESPN, how about this one? The 2 best teams, in my opinion, in the SEC. I know Florida drilled Tennessee, but to me, Tennessee a little bit more consistent. Number 6, Tennessee travels to number 1, Auburn. Will Auburn have Jonai Broom back? That is the thing to look out for. Even without Jonai Broom, Auburn will be favored, but in terms of KenPom right now, Auburn favored by 8. Must-watch game, 8:30 ESPN. How about the ESPN slate? So we'll just spoil it for the under-the-radar games. Number 9, Kentucky travels to Vanderbilt at 2:30 on ESPN. I gave the benefit at 2:30 to Texas A&M Texas because I think that's a little bit more intriguing to me than Kentucky at Vanderbilt, but that's still a fun game. So you got Kentucky at Vanderbilt at 2:30, Duke at Wake Forest at 4:30, Houston at Kansas at 6:30, and Tennessee at Auburn at 8:30. Shout out to ESPN, all on the ESPN main network there. How about that? Now, the under-the-radar games. We already talked about number 9, Kentucky. That's 2 spots down at Vanderbilt, 2:30 ESPN, Kentucky favored by 3. On the road at 2 o'clock, starting it off on ESPN+. Number 3, Iowa State travels to Arizona State. Arizona State just got that huge one at Cincinnati. I have them as the first team out. Huge opportunity here. It's tough to beat this Iowa State team, though. Iowa State favored by 8. At 3:30 on the SEC Network, we talked about Georgia's gauntlet. Here we go. At number 5, Florida. Florida favored by 11 in this one. At 8:30 on the SEC Network. Yeah, we're jumping from 3:30 to 8:30, so have those games up at from 4:30 to 6:30 on the must-watch games. 8:30 SEC Network, a rivalry game. LSU travels to number 4 Alabama. Alabama favored by 16. LSU is not as far off from the bubble as you think. If they were to go in here and just shock the world and shock Alabama, you'd be looking at them as like a first 4 team out, probably, I would say. LSU, done a decent job this year. At 8:30 on ESPN2, 2 teams with only 1 win in the SEC, but really highly thought of at one point in the season. Oklahoma travels to Arkansas. Arkansas is favored by 3. Arkansas without Boogie Fland, as mentioned, but they're 1-0 without Boogie Fland. How will this one go? At 10 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, San Diego State travels to Nevada. Nevada, very disappointing year for them. They just got drilled at Utah State, as we mentioned. San Diego State's been holding on for dear life. Nevada is favored by 1 in this one. Nevada, I don't think really has much of a chance of an at-large berth. San Diego State is in the tournament, but hanging on by a thread. They need it. Who will get the job done in this one? We'll see. At 10:30 on ESPN2, the last game we'll talk about. On Saturday, Cincinnati, one of the first couple teams out. BYU, probably like 10 to 12 teams out of the tournament. Both teams need it bad. BYU favored by 5 in this one at home. That's at 10:30 on ESPN2. Now on Sunday, just quickly, only 4 games to talk about. Go through them quickly. Maryland travels to Indiana, both teams near the bubble. 12 o'clock on CBS, Maryland favored by 2, even on the road. 1 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, Nebraska, who's been falling off like crazy, travels to number 18, Wisconsin, who's coming off a loss to UCLA. Wisconsin favored by 8 in that one. At 1 o'clock on ESPN2, UAB, who was picked by the coaches to win the American this year, travels to number 24, Memphis, who's been by far the best team in the American this year. The game's at 1 o'clock on ESPN2. Memphis is favored by 12. At 3 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, Northwestern has a chance to pick up a huge win. They already beat Illinois this year, but that was at home. Now they get to travel to number 17, Illinois, where Illinois is favored by 11 in that one. That is it. It was a long show. I know. Hopefully you guys stuck with me. Really appreciate everyone for tuning into this bracketology special. Hopefully you learned a little bit about some of the numbers that go into what makes bracketology so special. So that's going to do it for the show today. Everyone enjoy some good hoops this weekend. It is full of it. It is incredibly full of it. Watch Kansas take on Houston. Watch Auburn host Tennessee. It's going to be a lot of fun. Enjoy time with your family. Everyone take care. Talk to you again real soon. See ya.